Okay. I know you all, everybody who's been waiting to watch. Sorry, it's probably only one of you, but to be entirely honest, probably nobody's watching. I will be right back. I gotta go set things up on another computer. I'll be right back. I know you all are probably thinking, ugh, he's making bowls again for the 4th day in a row. Yep, I am. I do apologize, but this is stuff that I actually have to make for tests. So it's gonna be a little while making bowls. I am sorry. I really am. I don't want you to have to sit through bowl making every single day, and I apologize for the lawnmower sound going on outside. I've got the stream open in OBS on my laptop, and let me hit up my stream on Twitch. Alright, I will be looking at chat on Twitch, so I'm not going to be watching via. Perfect. I have my phone plugged in. Everything's visible. I can see chat. I should have my comments somewhere in there. So, I'm going to try to stay out of camera to have a drink here. Because I don't want that showing up. I don't condone the use of any controlled substances. So we'll just start by centering up this clay. If you're curious about what clay I'm using, the answer is nope. I won't be talking about wow, that's some excellent bass you got, dude. I really appreciate you airing that. I'm gonna give it a minute to get through that. I know this is coming up out of camera view, excuse me, on one of the cameras. And if I edit and re-upload this video on YouTube, more than likely I'm going to dub it with new audio, try and give the same audio that I did while on the stream, although just more professionally cadenced, so that way it's not potentially as awkward. But I don't, or I won't be mentioning the products that I'm using other than like tools, so people can see what I'm using there, because the tools I buy myself, and I may not be buying the clay that I'm using, so I will not ever mention what kind of clay that I'm using. I have no interest in sponsor deals with pottery tool or material supply companies in any capacity. I will use what I want to use, how I want to use it, and if companies don't like the fact that I'm using their tools or products in a specific way, then you know, that's unfortunate for that company. But because I won't necessarily be paying for the clays that I'm using. I won't be mentioning what it is that I use. If it's something that I'm paying for out of pocket, I will mention it, and I will speak about it in any capacity I feel is useful for what I'm doing. So with these pieces, again, throwing off the hump, and I just prefer to throw off the hump. After making pottery for a number of years, I've determined that off the hump is just a bit more efficient than using a bat and having a stack of bats lying around, or using a bat with square inserts and then one at a time pulling them off. This allows me to do a little bit of texture work on the outside of the piece, especially on bowls, without having to worry about contacting the wheel head. I can use some different ribs, so that way wheel head contact is not as much of an issue, but I am going to use the tools that I prefer right now, so it won't be anything where I'm switching to a different tool or some other manufacturer or something. It'll be just the small number of tools that I'm using at this point in time. Not really trying to use anything specialized. I know some people get frustrated when they are watching videos of certain artists or influencers, which I really hope I never get to that point. I don't at all want to be considered an influencer. Recompressing this rim, running it between my fingers, pushing down, and just slightly pushing inward. The whole goal of these videos is to simply show people what I do if they're interested in watching. And if you don't like what I do, it's easy, just don't watch. For the most part, I don't have social media. This is, I don't know. To be honest, I'm not entirely sure what I'm doing with this other than people wanted to watch me make stuff. I always thought it would be cool to stream the work that I'm doing. Although I don't like to show final results, I'll show some of the intermediate processes. So I'll show throwing work, I will show some of the firing, say if I'm doing wood firing or glaze firing, not glaze, salt or soda firing. I will show that, but I'm not going to show the glazing process. I'm not going to show where I might be altering and assembling forms, just because that's part of the step I want to keep to myself. So I will show the most basic things and everything else, most basic things and stuff that's really not going to be reproducible. So my wood firing work, salt firing, soda firing, every single time that you carry out a wood firing, you carry out a salt or soda firing. It's going to be different. So I don't really care that there's going to be the wild variation in the work, so I'm willing to show off those processes. So here's some of the things that I'll go over tool-wise. Same thing I use almost every single time I'm making bowls. especially if I'm doing these ramen style. Um, I will actually update this at some point in the future with one other tool to make these pieces a little bit more consistent. But I have my circular rib for recompressing the inside, so see that here on both cameras. And I don't use very many tools, so just keep that in mind. One of the things that I will be using, that I will just go ahead and show, and let me adjust this camera location here so that way the water bucket that I use is not taking up as much of the visual space. So one of the tools that I'll use is a synthetic chamois. This is actually made for, initially made for bats. So it is a large circle, but I won't actually be using it for bats. I don't like to use bats, so I will fold it up because I don't have any of my smaller bits of chamois. I have misplaced those. I don't know where they are. I will be using that to treat the rim. You can use a synthetic chamois if you want to. I don't like to use those because they tend to mold and then just generally decompose over time. So I avoid those as much as I possibly can. I'll also be using a metal kidney rib. Nothing fancy, just your literal basic in your pottery kit metal rib. May use a pottery kit sponge. For the most part, the tools that I use are basic tools. I don't really use anything complicated. And let's see, so I want to be able to put the texture in, treat the rim, rib for the outside, rib for the inside. I might end up using this, and I'll just go ahead and pull it out and show. Makeup sponge. These are fantastic for smoothing out surfaces because the porosity in the pore size is so small. They're much better than using these large pore sponges that you'll get in the pottery kits. And if you're going to ask me where did I get this rib, to be entirely honest, stole it from somewhere. I don't remember where. I just remember it was handed to me. It's not to say I condone stealing. It was handed to me for use. I used it. It was never asked to be returned, so I kept it. And who lent it to me, I have no idea. Another thing I'll be using to remove these pieces from the wheel head is a string cutoff tool. So this is used for cutting things off the hump. It is just a string attached to a handle, and this is much longer than it needs to be for the job. Really, you only need about 8 inches, roughly 8 inches here of string. And then that's not what I will be using. I will be remaking one. For right now, I'm just going to be using a tape measure. So I'll be using this as guidance for the diameter of the mouth of the bowl. I'm not going to be using it for height. If I wanted a better tool to be able to measure both height and depth and diameter, I could use something like this. And this is something I made 12, 14 years ago. It literally may have been that long ago. This is just shish kebab skewers that you can buy in a pack, super cheap, and then masking tape. So I can use this for the width. If I wanted to do depth and width, I could use it this way, and I could use it this way as well. So these were actually made for goblets that I make, and if I were going to do some goblets on stream, this is the tool that I would use, because this makes the indicator for both the height of the bowl, the depth of the bowl, the height of the stem, the width of the stem. So you can actually put it down on the inside. You can get every, dimension conceivable of that piece. You just hold it in place. It's an excellent guide to use. And I'm trying to think if there is anything else that I'll be using today, but I don't think so. This tool I probably won't use. More than likely for today's work, it will be just these 3 tools. Four, because of the cutoff tool. So these are what I'll be using today, and that's basically it. Hopefully my computer is not cutting out and putting some lag into the stream. Again, I throw dry, so you're not going to see me use a whole lot of water. You will see my hands start to dry out and get a little dusty. I'm going to try and avoid that as best I can, so that way I don't have to worry about a lot of dust generation. But this is porcelain. Porcelain typically, in my experience, tends to be a little bit less severe on your hands. Stonewares kind of get worse. In my experience, earthenwares really start to wear out. 5 tools. I forgot about the chamois. Earthenware clay bodies, because of the high amount of iron oxide and other oxides that are in there, that aren't necessarily constituent to the clay itself, not your clay, your glass former, your necessarily your flux. Those will dry out your hands a little bit more. So we're gonna go with making bowls. I'm gonna move quick today. I have 10 of these out of porcelain that I would like to make, because I have to trim them tomorrow, and on Tuesday hopefully I can get everything trimmed tomorrow, because I will be firing these Wednesday, so that I can, Wednesday morning actually, so that I can have this work ready for Thursday to do a wood firing, hopefully on Saturday. If not on Saturday, it'll be another week to produce that work. So I definitely do need to make sure I'm glazing everything that I'm making, and given ample time, I need about 2 days to get these glazed. And since the firing is happening about 3 hours away from where I live, then that's going to make things a little bit difficult to do all at once, unless I give myself some ample time. So, pulling the piece out, kind of a trumpet shape, going to be bringing this rib down onto the inside and working on opening the piece. I'm not going to worry about too much the water on the rib itself. Again, I throw dry. I'm probably going to go over this concept basically every single stream. I do apologize if there are people watching who are tired of hearing that. I'm actually going to dry out some of that water down in the bottom. I throw dry because when I learned how to make pottery, I was using a kick wheel, and that kick wheel did not have a splash pan. So in order to keep my pants dry, because the wheel head was actually slightly higher than what I've got now. I really need to get a shorter stool or just lift this wheel up slightly, which if I do that, then I'm going to have to adjust all of my camera rigging here. But it threw all of the water right into my crotch, so that's not really something I want to continue doing, and didn't want to continue doing, so I was throwing dry, and I'm going to continue to throw dry because I don't feel any reason to actually add more water to something when it works. So slowly opening this piece using a rib on the inside to recompress and pulling up and out. I'm not pulling past the rim, I'm just pulling up to the rim and then stopping. And then I will come back and recompress the foot of the piece. This is really important on pieces that are thrown off the hump because you can create S cracks. There's not a lot of resistance. When you push down, the clay is just going to want to move down. So you have to recompress the clay pretty frequently, and then when you're finished, you actually have to recompress all the clay down in what will be the foot. So I kind of squeeze it down, a little bit of a choke, use my fingers, and then that really helped to compress the clay from the bottom after I've done a lot of work compressing the clay to the top, from the top. A lot of the bowls that I have made, I have noticed, are starting to get S cracks in them. So far I've been using 3 different clay bodies. One of them, of the 2 that I have used, is more susceptible to S cracks. So I have to make sure that I'm aware of that. I might have to flip the remaining pieces that are drying over, so that way as it shrinks, it's shrinking evenly on the foot. So go ahead and measure this. I'm going to guess, I didn't look, I'm going to guess it's just at 7 inches. Ooh, 7.5. Okay. So this looks good. I'm going to go ahead and start with my metal rib here. Get some even surface on this piece. And I realize I did not relocate my second studio light, so I do need to do that, which is not a big deal. So give my hands a quick rinse in this everything slip bucket, water bucket, and relocate this lamp to right here. Give me just a little bit better lighting. Gotta check. Okay, GoPro shadow is being cast in a different spot. Alright, so this looks pretty decent. I'm gonna come back a little bit more with this metal rib. I'm really trying to get a nice smooth surface on these pieces, so that way the texture that I add to them is only in the locations where I want it. So I do apologize, you'll hear a weed whacker going, my neighbors taking care of their lawn. Something that I should probably do myself. So I'm using this wooden rib, or excuse me, this metal rib, it's not wood at all, to cut a groove into this surface. I'm using my finger on the inside to actually reinforce that texture. So I'm going to come back with the wooden rib and work on smoothing out all those ridges that I've created in this piece. And it will change the profile of this bowl, which is okay, because I've kept it a little vertical in anticipation of that. So, using two hands, make sure I'm just contacting the other, the primary tool hand to reinforce. And if you're considering, is pottery left-handed or right-handed? The answer is no. There's really no true handedness in making pottery. We do turn the wheel counterclockwise here in the U.S. A lot of Asian countries do it clockwise. And that doesn't mean that they're primarily, because I was born right-handed, and turning counterclockwise means that is how predominantly right-handed people make pottery. That does not mean that in Asia they are primarily left-handed, because they're not. The majority of the population is in fact right-handed, and that's just throwing the opposite direction is just what they do, primarily in some Asian cultures. So you just learn to do it in the convention that you are taught. I would not at all worry about pottery being a left-handed versus right-handed, at least wheel-thrown pottery being right-handed versus left-handed. You use your hands equally. It's the same with glass blowing. If you're new and you haven't watched this channel before, I make pottery and I blow glass. And I'm an engineer. So all sorts of different things going on here. But same with glass blowing. It is not left or right-handed. Some people will say, oh, benches are left-handed if you want to do things, or excuse me, benches are right-handed in the main convention. If you want to do things left-handed, you'll have to start your own studio, because most studios don't have setup for left-handed individuals. It's not really true. You have to learn awkward skills with both hands. So it's all pretty much going to be new if you've never done it before. So left-handed versus right-handed, that's not something I would focus on. And you might say, well, you're a right-handed individual, so obviously you don't care because you're learning in a manner that's set up for right-handed people. I'm forced ambidextrous. I ended up actually breaking my arm as a young child, and that actually influenced me pretty heavily to make sure that I could do what I needed to do with both hands. I can write with both hands. I brush my teeth left-handed. Usually when I go to do, say something like open a door, I'm usually opening a door with my left hand. And that's not to say because, I necessarily have something in my right hand. A lot of the times I do. But it's just the fact that it's much like playing piano, making pottery or blowing glass. Both hands are working together. They're working on different melodies, but it's all in the same rhythm. So don't really focus on things being left or right-handed. Just learn it the way that your instructor tells you to do it. It's gonna be awkward when you first start doing it, regardless of learning it going the opposite direction, right hand on the inside, left hand on the outside, or going the direction I'm turning, left hand on the inside, right hand on the outside. My left hand does so much work. And really it's about balancing your hands together with one another. Let me get off camera to have a drink here. I know my pot is somewhat out of the shot on the main view. I do apologize. I'm not going to be adjusting the view up and down. One of the things that I do need to get that I don't have, and I've not had for quite some time, is a propane torch. I will say I am impatient. So anytime I was making work years and years, over a decade ago, which might not look like a thing that's actually possible. I know some people think I look much younger than I actually am. Anytime I was making work, I was torching it. And the clay that I prefer to use most often, I will say it's just a weird observation, smells like baked potatoes. And I've not encountered any other clay sorry, let me, friend's asking me a question here. Okay. Nice. I was curious if I was running my hands along the rim of or my shirt along the rim of the pot. And I was, but it doesn't look like it was causing any problems. So, I wouldn't worry about handedness. It's just all around awkward. And the only thing that I would say, I would recommend, is a torch or blowgun or a heat gun, which I realize I have a heat gun. I just remembered I have a heat gun. And since this is porcelain, and porcelain does tend to be very compliant and distort very easily, at least the porcelain that we have here in the US. It's not a traditional porcelain from China that's like cottage cheese, chunky, gross. It's a little bit different than that. It's actually pretty smooth. Just a minute here. Oh, it's perfect reach. I can actually blow dry this, or heat gun, excuse me, not blow dry. I can hit this with a heat gun and stiffen up the foot of the piece, so that way when I go to pick it up, it's not actually going to distort all that much. Torches are much faster, and I would recommend a torch, just a propane, like a soldering torch you can get from any hardware store or a big box store. There's spider webs all over. We will help greatly if you are an impatient individual. Okay, that is very hot, so I have to put that somewhere where it's not going to be extremely problematic. So I'm going to torch that, heat that, hit this with my finger to put a nice little groove all around, and then use this cut off tool to just lightly hold this in place. Nice slow speed, let the string wrap all the way around and just pull it free. So now I have a lip to hold on to, and I can just easily pick it up off the hump and place it to the side. Okay. Place that right there. That seems very precarious. I don't like that at all. So this is going to adjust the camera position slightly. I do apologize. Okay, that looks much better. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and start the next bowl. Like I said, I'm trying to get 10 of these done today. I'm going to try and use only about 25 pounds of clay to do that. That means $10 bowls, 25 pounds of clay. That would be 2.5 pounds of clay per bowl, which I think that's very, very doable. And I know I have roughly a pound of clay in the foot, so I can potentially reduce that slightly. So really pushing into the clay with my left hand towards the center, pushing down with my right hand, and I'm not hovering, my arms are not hovering. My arms are anchored into my legs, and that really helps to ensure that I'm stable and the clay will not move me. I will move the clay. It will go where I want it to go. I will not go where the clay feels like putting me. So, come back in, narrow that clay down and then compress it just a little bit. So you can see I've got a little bit of a constriction right here. That's okay. I want to keep that really as narrow as possible because I don't want to have to squeeze that down too much in order to get the height out of this piece. And open the piece up, use this slip that comes off on my hands just from working with the clay to lubricate my hands. I don't like adding a lot of extra water. I don't add a lot of extra water because it's a waste of water. Only need as much as is required to keep the clay lubricated and from grabbing. And a lot of the times it's a support problem when your clay starts to grab. So I'm going to use my right hand claw method on the outside, pull it up into a nice vertical cylinder. Again, I'm just doing this with my hand and then coming over with the fingertips over the top, not pinching the clay between my knuckle and my fingertips, but stretching it over the knuckle and past the fingertips. Compress that rim just slightly. Just a little bit of water on the fingertips to help. And then come back, get just underneath the foot of this piece, or where the foot will be, and fingertips on top, knuckle underneath, come through, pull to the rim, not past the rim, gently pull away, always gently pulling away from the clay, so that way you don't cause an uneven surface. Anytime where there's an air bubble, get to pull out a needle tool, something that I don't often use. Poke a hole, a couple of holes in that air bubble. Okay, and come back to the piece, going a little bit slower, pulling out now towards myself. Starting that bowl shape. Bowl, not bowl, bowl shape. And just do it one more time. Get a little bit of grabbing on the inside of this piece, not being quite lubricated well enough with my fingers, but good enough. I don't think it's going to be too much of a problem. So I will add some clay back in. Rib, left hand, again supporting with the right hand, doing the majority of the work with the left hand, but the right hand supports to keep the movements steady. Like individually, I would say my hands are really not all that steady. I do tend to move around quite a bit. I'll use a sponge here to remove some of that slip down at the bottom. But when you brace your hands together, it makes it much easier. Now, going to be, after recompressing the bottom of this piece with this rib, I'm going to be opening, trying to keep this piece fairly vertical, and opening to about, I would say that's just under 7 inches.